Welcome to another episode of Wellness for Caregivers. My name is Rhoda Wagaki, a psychological counselor with Suruvi Care for Caregivers. Last week we talked about 3 types of caregivers. And today I want us to talk about self-care because that's the other thing that we shall say a lot. This is a word that has in the recent times become very popular. My internet provider sent me an email the other day saying self-care is getting bandwidth. Self-care has been used in advertisements for lotions, for shoes, for spas, for anything really. And self-care has almost become synonymous to indulgence, to splurging on yourself, to being told you're not being selfish, to being told you deserve it, and all of those things. Now, when you are in the process of taking care of another person, when finances are tight, when fatigue is high, when you are worrying constantly about the well-being of your loved one, self-care, spas, bandwidth, shoes, indulgence is not what comes into your mind. In fact, you struggle with the very concept. Now, I want us to take all of that and put it in a box. In a good world, in an ideal world where there is no illness, where money is not an issue, where we are doing fantastic and great, then we shall think about that kind of self-care. Now, I want us to think of self-care in this context as a critical service to yourself, something that you cannot do without, something that is not just an activity in isolation. For example, I said last week going jogging. That is good for your physical self. But even then, it is good for your physical self if you are not struggling with fatigue, if you're not struggling with arthritis, if you're not struggling with nutrition for yourself, then jogging will work very well for you. But I want us to think of ourselves, we caregivers, more holistically. I want us to think of ourselves almost like a soldier who is at war. When you are going to war, when a soldier is going to war, there are things they do not do because they are going to war. There are things they will do because they are going to war. Let me use a less drastic example. A footballer, an athlete, there are foods they will not eat. There is a time they will not sleep. There is a posture they will not take. There are exercises they will take. There are people they will listen to, because they are taking care of all of themselves, not just one part of themselves. Equally, for caregivers, think about all your tasks for the day. Think about the goal you want to achieve. In the context of a caregiver, the goal is to be an effective caregiver and to be a wholesome human being. Because every time you step into an interaction with your loved one who is sick, who has a condition, who is struggling with the frailties of age, there's an energy exchange between the two of you. I'll give you an example again of my grandmother. My grandmother, bless her soul, may she continue to rest in peace. She was very girly. She was a very girly grandmother. And every time you entered her room, she needed to be sure her hair is right and that she is seated properly and her clothes are looking good. Very different from my grandfather. Oh, and my grandmother was finicky with food. So if you were going to go feed her, you needed to have a certain frame of mind. My grandfather, easy-go-lucky guy, he would laugh at anything. It didn't matter to him what you fed him. So the energy you stepped into feeding him with is different from the energy you stepped in to feed my grandmother with. If you are cranky, if you're having a bad day, don't go to my grandmother, go to my grandfather. You will laugh. If you are feeling extra philanthropic, my grandmother is the one you will go to with your extra dose of grace because you have it. But what would have made you better at serving my grandmother on that day? You slept well, you did not wake up cranky, you have a song in your heart, you are feeling like smiling a lot, you are feeling like you can do her hair for her. Now, If you're lacking in those, you seek support from my other siblings. You find food that she especially loves so that then you will not struggle to feed her. You go with an anecdote. You go with a cartoon series. You go in, you prepare to go and feed her. Where does this energy come from? It comes from self-care. It comes from how you're taking care of yourself. It comes from being aware of your role. It comes from being aware of your human limitations. It comes from being aware of the task ahead of you and then preparing for it. That is the beginning of self-care, being aware of who you are, your role, your person, and what is required for that day. So if you need to take extra water, if you need to rest, if you need to take them outside and have a time with them, prepare for it. Now, I want to leave you with this thought. Think about the person you're taking care of. Think about your environment. Think about all the other tasks you have to take care of. Other children, your work, your boss, finances, your church, your requirements. Think about all that. And then think about who you are. What are your limitations? How do you work best? Are you a better person in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon? Who are you? And how are you stepping into this role today? How can you take care of yourself? In other episodes, we shall continue to unpack this thing that we are calling self-care and help you think about what will work best for you.